Well, welcome everyone to our March 2021 Salem Area Chamber of Commerce Forum Speaker Series. We are already 8 days into a month-long celebration of women, nationally recognized Women's History Month. But also today, March 8th, is International Women's Day. And we just finished a very special Zoom celebration with some of our key women leaders in this community. So it was quite fun and I'm still pretty stoked. We are also fortunate to celebrate the reopening of many of our area businesses and restaurants as the COVID numbers have decreased here in Marion and Polk counties. And I hope you have been shopping and eating local. Well, let's start today's forum with recognition of one of the Salem area's most amazing women. The Spirit of Salem Award is the Salem Chamber's chance to recognize the influencers who put Salem first and inspire other individuals to become champions for our city. Today's recipient is not only a fantastic leader, a female leader, she has inspired other females to lead. Bonnie Milletto can only be seen with an uplifting smile on her face. Be prepared to laugh and engage when Bonnie is in the room, and she is in the room. From her involvement with Chemeketa Community College, Corbin University, the Oregon Garden, the Salem Chamber of Commerce, Salem Public Schools, Travel Salem's Board, the Mayor's Task Force, Vision 2020 Committee, Dress for Success, Miss Miriam Polk Scholarship Program, Liberty House, and Salem Junior League, to being named the first woman Chamber of Commerce president in the Sublimity Staten area for 2 consecutive terms, Bonnie's impact in the Salem metro area runs deep. Drawing from years of experience as an on-camera host and live event hosting, combined with 7 consecutive years as the founder and host of Salem's annual AmazingYOU Empowerment Conference, Bonnie creates extraordinary experiences by engaging audiences, getting them into action and inspiring them to do great things. A 5-year founding member of the Fostering Hope Initiative, the Governor's Conference MC, and keynote and host for countless organizations, Bonnie is a top media source on personal empowerment, youth challenges, and life success. Bonnie is the published author of Dedicated to the Cup, 9 Ways to Improve a Life, and the most recent guidebook to action for youth and young adults, Been There, From Stuck to Unstoppable. Today, Bonnie's impact is not only felt here in Salem, but around the world as an international motivational speaker, event host, and youth advocate. She is also a contributing writer to the international global platforms, Biz Catalyst 360 and Thrive Global. Help me give a huge congratulations to Bonnie Milletto, our Spirit of Salem Award recipient. Woohoo! Take it away, Bonnie.
Oh, dear Father. Okay, so I'm not going to cry yet. Those of you that know me at events, I'm not going to dance either yet. Those that know me well know that I am not at a loss for words, so I wrote down some remarks so that I wouldn't go over my time. You're welcome, Tom. I am so humbled that you have chosen me for this incredible award when there are so many people that I have been blessed to learn from and to work alongside of for the betterment of our communities. I won't repeat any of that community and career involvements you just heard, but I'd like to personally thank the Chamber of Commerce for leading the way in support of all people, business, health, safety, and education. And as a major encourager of women, I want to give a shout out to all the ladies. Today is National Women's Day, and coming up, I have 2 tips for you that I will share. So, how did I get in this position of inspiring others, to having that perception of being one who supports and encouraging others? A big part of my becoming an inspiration for others began with helping other people achieve their goals. Many of the people I served with on committees, I'm talking about you right now, and the people that I coached and mentored became my guideposts at a time in my life when I had little belief in myself. It's called imposter syndrome. I learned to dress, to do my hair, to say the right words, to show up, to be there. But I learned what it is to be a leader from all of you. As I worked with and encouraged people, I was also learning and working on myself. Through helping others, I found the courage to identify and overcome challenges that continued to build my resilience. I started speaking up to what matters and ultimately using my voice to encourage and pave the way for others. As you can say, I have been there. From the young to the young at heart, my passion is bringing out the greatness within all people. This Spirit Award, when I got the call from Tom, it's like, what is this? I don't understand. Well, this is what it means. This Spirit Award is for everyone hearing my voice, especially for those of you who may think you are not worthy to be recognized as a leader who inspires others to do great things. To this, I say to all of you, get out of your own way now. I'm back. The only limits you have on who you are and how you want to be and how you want to show up each day are the limits you impose on yourself. No one can stop you but you. Start by showing up big, by inspiring just one person, you. The positive effect of your greatness will be the ripple of goodness that will spread far and wide in Salem and throughout all the Salem metro communities that you serve. Okay, today is International Women's Day. Ladies, I have 2 tips for you. Number 1, you do not need permission from anyone but yourself to follow your dreams and find personal and professional fulfillment. Never settle for anything less than what you want. And in pursuit of following your dreams, number 2, don't ever let somebody tell you that you can't do something. Okay, there's always going to be people who will give you their opinion on what you should be doing, how you should go about doing it, and if you are doing it the right way, their way. Don't let people should all over you. Do it, whatever it may be, your way. Okay, there could be hundreds of other people doing the same it, but they're not you. And you're not them. You are unique. You are one of a kind. Find the courage to be you. One more tip. This is a tip that my friend who encouraged me from when we grew up together in Albany, still to this day. Mike McLaren told me, Bon, the most important thing isn't winning or losing. The most important thing is getting off the bench and into the game and just giving it everything you've got. You're not born to stand on the sidelines any longer. Get in the game. I want to thank you again for this honor and your continued confidence in me to inspire. I will continue to support you. I will continue to support the Chamber and keep looking for ways to serve you. Thank you so much.
Bonnie, thank you. That was awesome. That was so awesome. Thank you so, so much, and so well deserved. So well deserved. All right. Well, let's transition here to, I'm going to introduce Scott Weigel. He is from Donathan Sturdivant, and he is going to make us an official meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Kathy. It occurred to me as I was getting ready to do the Pledge of Allegiance, I needed a flag to look at, and benefit of, I'm actually looking right now at the Jerry Frank Amphitheater that they're building. And so if you all would join me, I'll stand and we'll do our allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Some high-tech audio video here while I move the camera. And then thank you, Tom, for asking me on the invocation. This is really refreshing to have a public business meeting that we can also still blend prayer in. And as I was getting ready for this, it occurred to me what I should kick us off with. And it actually has a neat tie back to the chamber. 10 years ago, when I was at the Greeters and early chamber networking events, I met Dean Craig, who gave me a book, and nondescriptly in the back page of that book was this prayer I'd like to share with you, slightly adapted, and you all would join me or listen. Obtain for me the grace to work conscientiously, putting the call of duty above our many sins, to work with gratitude and joy, to employ and develop by our labor the gifts received from God, to work with order, patience, moderation, and persistence, never recoiling before weariness or difficulty, to work with pure intention and detachment from self, keep always before our eyes the end and the account which we then must render of time lost, talents wasted, good omitted, and vain complacency and success. And then an extra recognition today for all the ladies joining us on International Women's Day, for my wife and my 3 daughters as well. May they get into the game. I love that quote, Bonnie. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us here at the forum today. Guide our thoughts and ears as we listen to the information. Help us be open to nudges after this call today too. Any nudges that you may have for us to act on as we near the 1-year mark of the original shutdown. And we've gone through a time where it's been really difficult on a lot of people. May those who don't have as much time, money, and social and emotional capital, help them to feel brave enough to raise their hands so that the rest of us can try to help them as well. I heard a great quote recently, just last week: the economy is nothing more than people doing something for other people. And that's a blend here for us today. Kathy, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Scott. That was really wonderful. A real great invocation. Really appreciate that. All right. I have the pleasure of introducing our sponsor today. So today's sponsoring company has a long history of chamber involvement. Saafeld Griggs PC is a premier business law firm in the Salem community. In fact, 3 partners have served as the chamber in the Salem Chamber as the highest ranking organizational volunteer in their roles as chamber president. In addition to past presidents Bob Saafeld, Chris Gorsuch, and Mark Shipman, Caleb Williams and Randy Cook have also served on the Salem Chamber Board of Directors. Thank you for helping guide the Salem Chamber over many years of service. Saafeld Griggs PC utilizes an appropriate tagline: sound counsel, smart business. Lawyers and litigators for all things business. This is a firm you want in your corner, and they have knowledge and expertise that are valued far beyond just the Salem market. Saafeld Griggs serves clients and businesses in the Northwest and across the United States. Their attorneys provide counsel to companies large and small, public and private. The firm is organized into specialized practice groups. The lawyers in each group have developed a deep understanding of the legal issues and problems related to their area of practice. Their industry teams blend specialized industry and trade knowledge with extensive practice group experience to bring superior service to their clients of both local and national organizations. Representing Saafeld Griggs today is their shareholder, Randall Sutton. Randy is an experienced litigator who focuses his practice on business and employment litigation matters. Randy also advises employers regarding employment law compliance. With over 20 years of law experience, he is highly regarded for his skills as a litigator and is a frequent public speaker on employment law compliance issues. Randy specializes in key areas nearly any Salem business would receive benefit from advisement in. Those areas are employment law and employment litigation, business, real estate, and complex litigation, non-competition, trade secrets, and duty of loyalty litigation. Randy is a frequent author and public speaker on employment legal issues. He began his career as a personnel assistant for the city of San Diego. Randy is admitted to practice both in Oregon and Washington and assists clients across the Northwest. Randy has served for many years as the Oregon Legislative Director for the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, and was the 2012 Director of SHRM's Oregon State Council. Randy serves on the Oregon Business and Industry, OBI, Employment Practices Steering Committee, where he plays a part in helping to shape laws affecting Oregon employers. Randy is the past president of the Job Growers Incorporated Tri-County Workforce Investment Board. He served as the chair of the Pacific Coast Invitational statewide marching band competition for 3 consecutive years. Randy can frequently be found enjoying road trips and track events with fellow sports car enthusiasts. He is thankful that his wife, Terry, has remained a good sport through many twisty and narrow mountain roads. Randy is an avid photographer and occasional tennis player. He enjoys hanging out with his teenage sons and frequent travel with his lovely wife. Randy wishes that the quality of his golf game reflected all of the effort he has put into it. He is a great admirer and sometimes creator of perfectly smoked beef brisket. These are all important things that you need to know about Randy. Please join me in welcoming Randy Sutton, representing our sponsor for today's Forum Speaker Series, Saafeld Griggs PC.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate it. Saafeld Griggs is very pleased to sponsor today's forum. The firm's been around since 1932, and I'm pretty sure we've been chamber members for about that long. We really appreciate everything the chamber does for the community, and Salem would be a very different place without the chamber's leadership and hard work. It's a little hard to believe that we've got 25 lawyers here at Saafeld Griggs, and what's harder for me personally to believe is that I've been around the firm for 27 years. I think that's a testament to the many great lawyers here at the firm that a lot of our clients that were here when I started and just graduated law school are still getting their legal work done at Saafeld Griggs. We don't practice every kind of law. We focus on the needs of business and business owners. So being specialized allows us to have kind of a deep level of knowledge and skill that you'd expect from a Portland firm, but from lawyers that you're likely to run into at a Little League game or the vegetable aisle at Ross. Our practice areas are corporate and tax, civil litigation, real estate and land use, estate planning, construction law, creditors' rights, employee benefits, and of course, my personal favorite, employment law. Once again, I'd like to thank the Chamber for its service to the community, and we're very pleased to be a part of the good work that the Chamber is doing. So thanks to all of you. Okay, so now let's get to our guest speaker, and let me tell you a little bit about him. Patrick Reiten is responsible for leading the national policy and legislative work of Berkshire Hathaway Energy. It's a $91 billion portfolio of local managed businesses that share a vision for secure and sustainable energy future. Mr. Wrighton has extensive experience in executive leadership in the energy business. So prior to his current role, he was president and CEO of Pacific Corp Transmission, and that's a position he held since 2015. And he, in that role, he managed the West's largest single-owned and operated transmission system. Prior to that, he was president and CEO of Pacific Power, an electrical energy company serving about 750,000 customers in California, Oregon, and Washington. And he was appointed to that role in 2006. Before joining Pacific Corp, Mr. Wrighton was the president and CEO of PNGC Power, an energy cooperative located in Portland. And he was appointed to that position in 2002 and was responsible for the operations of PNGC Power and Power Resources Cooperative. He's also served as an aide to Senator Mark Hatfield, where he was responsible for many issues, including those associated with the U.S. Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. He served as an official in several different capacities for the U.S. Department of Interior, including the Deputy Director of the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. And he's also served on a lot of more local director and board leadership roles. He was the immediate past chair of Associated Oregon Industries, now known as OBI, and co-chair of the Freshwater Trust. He also serves on the board of directors of Legacy Health System and of Electric Transmission Texas LLC. He's a graduate of University of Washington and completed executive training at the Wharton School of Business. So with that, please help join me in welcoming our keynote speaker for today's forum, Mr. Patrick Reiten.
Hey, thanks so much. If I've done this right, my audio is working and I'm off mute. You'd think after a year we would all figure that out, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. And thanks to Tom and Kathy and the Chamber team and Randy and the good folks from Saafeld Griggs for sponsoring the series. Made possible by the magic of Zoom, I'm coming to you from our nation's capital, where it's crisp and cold today, but expected to reach 70 this week. So looking forward to that. As far as I can tell from our offices here in the Penn Quarter area, no one is scaling the walls of the Capitol. So that's a positive as well. Looking forward to today's remarks. I was joking with Tom earlier that I have about 20 minutes of remarks for a 40-minute slot. So, working in an engineering-dominated industry, I'm obligated to deploy an engineering solution. So I may talk very slowly. Just kidding. But you've given me the leeway to expand, and I'm going to take that opportunity along with some time for Q&A at the end. So I appreciate, Randy, that really gracious introduction. You all should know that while I'm 3,000 miles away as a family, our local roots run deep. I'm a fifth-generation Oregonian whose relatives on my mother's side came across on the Oregon Trail. My great-grandfather was a Methodist minister and, as I've been told, did a stint as an editor at the Statesman Journal. My late great-aunt Pete was Willamette's first homecoming queen. True story. She went on to write a book about our family coming across on the trail called The Reluctant Pioneer, the story of Mary Vowell Adams. Apparently she wasn't altogether keen on coming, and Amazon and the Oregon Trail Museum still carry the book along with the sequel about early life in the Willamette Valley. That one's called On a Silver Platter. A very close cousin, Randy, you may know Gina Johnny, who's a local attorney there. She's actually being honored next week with her work with the Oregon Bar. And then our oldest son, Connor, and his family are now Salem residents. He works for Northwest Natural, which leads to a bit of a story. My father also worked for Northwest Natural, from which he retired. Like me and Connor, my father and I also worked in the Northwest energy industry at the same time, with me at PNGC Power and then Pacific Power, and he was at Northwest Natural. Both of my experiences were with electric companies. So he liked to call me after big storms and point out that no pipelines had blown down overnight. So, really helpful. So it was with great interest that I learned during the recent local ice storm that 11 houses were without gas service in Marion County. And as it turned out, one of them was our son Connor. So, well, that was kind of funny and ironic. We did worry about the impacts to our greatest asset, his daughter Elin, our first grandchild. Elin is our prime target when we're back to visit in about 2 weeks. So we're really looking forward to being in town. Salem is also where really my career started when I walked into the Salem office of Jerry Frank. I was a college student looking for an internship, not knowing what direction I was headed in life. What I encountered that day has been honestly retold by hundreds of Hatfield staffers over the years who had the exact same experience. It involves waiting outside his office in a room filled with pictures of Jerry with governors, Jerry with presidents, Jerry with foreign leaders, Mother Teresa, Jerry with the Pope, and then finally being escorted inside his personal office with Jerry, then asking questions from behind what seemed to me then to be like an aircraft carrier sized desk with this one single light shining down on an immaculately clean desktop. And I've often thought that maybe that he had the cushions taken out, of the chair of his interviewees we were sitting in to further emphasize the height differential. So only Jerry can tell us whether that was actually the case, but the message was really clear. If you could survive that encounter with a kind of a modicum of poise, you had some chance of surviving the rigors of work in DC and in the senator's office. That experience, the experience that interview afforded, was just incredible. Living in DC, spending time with Senator Hatfield, learning about issues and how policy is made, how all of that impacts the state, were really all worth their weight in gold. But now with with a bit of perspective, I also cherish two other things, and maybe they've proven even more valuable in the long run. The first is learning how to conduct business the Jerry Frank way, the Myron Frank way, really, getting back to people promptly, taking their concerns seriously, being responsive and accountable. Knowing that, even in the context of DC, good outcomes for individual people constitutes the best politics in the long run. And then second, of course, as with all things in life, the other lasting impact has been the people. An example, my early roommate spoke here in your series last year, Sean O'Halloran. Just recently, at the end of the year, retired from Nike, is their global government relations vice president. I won't tell any backstories on Sean, though it's really tempting. Not only is he a distinguished Willamette board member currently, but there's always the potential for mutually assured destruction. So I'm not going to go there. But the Hatfield group is tight, kind of an extended family, really, and here in Oregon, it's still a significant presence. Some of us have joked, not without reason, that Jerry not only gave us jobs and direction, but really also picked out our friends for us. And he did a good job of that because they've been friends for life. So we're all honored to be part of his family and for him to be part of ours. And, really, isn't that a great lesson? What a blessing it is to have somebody play that key role in your early life and career, and the realization that we all have opportunities to do that, and we should take them. So what's it like to spend 10 years in DC, to begin your career, 20 subsequent years in the Pacific Northwest business community, and then now to be back in DC again? To be honest, it was a bit disorienting when my wife and I returned in 2017, leaving Pacific Corp and joining our holding company team at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. We showed up, we were as awed as ever by the monuments and the Capitol and the White House and all they stand for. But the business of the town, really making policy, is now conducted differently than we remember it. The age of 24/7 news cycles, televised congressional chambers, and we used to listen to the floor on these little squawk boxes, and you got really good at recognizing people's voices. But there were no extended speeches in front of empty chambers then. Large campaign dollars funneled into independent expenditure campaigns. Those have all resulted in changes in both process and outcome. These days, the really large decisions are now negotiated and made by caucus leaders rather than by committee chairs and their ranking members. And those really large decisions are not enacted through what we used to call the regular order, but now increasingly as part of large omnibus bills that move through Congress using the so-called budget reconciliation process that allow major positions to be adopted on a 50+1 majority vote basis. So rather than through compromise that secures broader support. The current prohibition on the ability of the appropriations committees to direct funding through earmarks, and I know that's controversial, though I worked for an appropriations committee chairman and got to watch it up close. The prohibition has ceded significant programmatic control over the disbursement of funds to the executive branch, and in my opinion has lessened the ability to forge consensus by the necessity of taking care of home districts. And when you put all of that together, it does question, calls into question the durability of large policy decisions. For instance, Obamacare was passed without any Republican support during the Obama years. The 2017 Jobs and Tax Act was passed during the Trump administration without any Democratic support. And all of that is worrisome for business, which thrives on stability and consensus. The ability to make large capital decisions is hugely reliant on having a reasonable map of the road ahead, given that they're multi-year and long-lived. And knowing that map won't be materially redrawn on a partisan basis with the next change of majorities is really important. So that need for durability leaves many of us, and particularly in the business community, be fans of divided government, even if that reality also promotes less concrete movement. I've told a lot of folks over the years that when I got to DC and I was a young staffer and very charged up, I was really, really frustrated by the lack of movement. And as time went by, I became to appreciate that as a good thing, that checks and balances, that adherence to minority rights on either side lends to outcomes that are less reactionary and create more stability. And again, representing a large business, that stability is really, really important as we're making business decisions and allocating capital. So end of that part of the speech, my 2 cents. But in a way, that's what got me reassigned to DC in the first part. Proposals in the Tax and Jobs Act of 2017 to retroactively reduce the value of wind project tax credits would have undermined the business cases for a large number of renewable energy investments that we were making. In fact, those numbers are really, really large. We had a total of $8.8 billion worth of in-flight wind projects with significant customer benefits attached that would have been canceled had that battle been lost. And fortunately, we were successful in thwarting that proposal, which was, at the time largely driven by the oil and gas industry. So that was one realization. The politics of fuel supply are really, really brutal. But in the end, those projects were completed, and we're currently using them to serve customers. And maybe as an outcome of that success, my wife and I are still in DC, which is great. We're still learning a lot. We're still having fun, helping to guide policy and contributing to positive business cases for what is a really wonderful company. I've learned since I've been here and becoming an officer of Berkshire Hathaway Energy that you can't prevail on all issues just because you show up and your business card has a Berkshire logo on it, but you can at least get the foot in the door to argue your case, which is a great and wonderful thing. So let's talk energy policy for a bit. As a holding company that includes Pacific Power and Pacific Corp and a host of other energy-related operating companies, I have to, by the way, update the bio. The asset value is now up to $127 billion, which is just amazing. We are privileged to serve 11 plus million customers with assets in 35 U.S. states and internationally. In addition to gas pipelines that we operate that transport 20% of the gas used in the US, and regulated service utilities that serve some parts of 11 states, we have the largest renewable generation fleet of any utility in the country on an owned and contracted basis. And that comprises 10% of all domestic solar capacity, 12% of all US wind, and 30% of all US geothermal capacity. So, but all of that said, and the company is it's tripled in size since I went to work for Pacific Power in 2006, which is amazing. But at our core, we're really just a series of local companies responsive to local stakeholders, and we have the responsibility of taking policy positions into account that put our customers' interests first. And among other things, our customers and stakeholders are telling us that they'd like to see a further transition towards low and no emissions in our operations while keeping customer costs stable, which is a hard thing to do, as I'll describe. So not surprisingly, we're very active on a policy level around how to do that. However that goal is defined, whether getting to zero emissions by a date certain or serving customer demand with renewable generation on a 24/7 basis, we need to start that conversation by recognizing a couple important realities. It isn't currently cost effective with commercial technology to get to 100% and keep the lights on reliably today. Often seen as the holy grail, state-of-the-art batteries have a 4-hour discharge profile that's great for helping to match a solar generation peak, in the middle of the day with a customer usage peak late in the day. But they're less helpful in covering the evening ramp as solar generation comes off, and much less overnight and seasonally. So we can solve that problem by overbuilding our generation system and or buying lots and lots of expensive batteries, but that doesn't square with the prime directive of keeping customer costs stable and communities competitive in a global economy. What that reality really does do is inform a broad policy agenda with the hope of making that 100% goal economically and reliably achievable, which we're committed to. And I think of it as solving a simple equation that's very hard to make work in the real world, but it goes something like this. You take your existing what we call thermal units. Let's think of them as cold generation units, and shortening up their depreciation schedule, so that increases the near-term cost to customers. And then you try and offset that increased cost with bringing in lower cost renewables, plus the cost of high voltage transmission to integrate them into the system. So, that equation is something Pacific Corp has been particularly good at, but requires really good market conditions and resource procurement and a very, very sharp pencil. And even then, you need something to draw on when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. So, you can get a long ways by broadening the footprint over the area within which you manage. So, essentially using the kind of the diversity of generation and customer usage to help balance things out. But at the end of the day, you need more cost-effective storage, and or you need more certain clean generation. So the question is, what policies are required to get there? Let me throw out a few. Financially incenting and streamlining siting and permitting more high voltage transmission lines. Adopting better energy market mechanisms to take advantage of the peaks and valleys in generation and usage, so you can net those out. Encouraging new and existing energy storage technologies through siting and permitting reform and favorable tax incentives. Enhancing federal funding for research, development, and the deployment of new technologies, including advanced nuclear. We've been really pleased to work with NuScale, which originated in the Energy Lab, and Dr. Jose Reyes at Oregon State on small modular reactors. We've been working with Bill Gates' Terrapower on sodium fast reactors. Other things that are solidly within our policy sides, transitioning the transportation system to alternative fuels, including electric and compressed natural gas and hydrogen, through infrastructure grants and private partnerships with OEMs and private fuel stations. Working on other admittedly really kind of cool in an energy nerd kind of way issues like last year we secured significant grant funding from the state of California and the Department of Energy to build demonstration plants adjacent to the Salton Sea in Imperial County, California, to extract lithium from geothermal plant brine and convert it into battery grade lithium for use in the expanding electric transportation sector. So watch for more on that. And with regard to our existing assets, recognizing the positive impact of U.S. Liquid natural gas on providing a transition fuel for China and other industrialized countries. There was this great article this weekend in the Wall Street Journal. China, Japan, and South Korea make up 60% of the world's LNG demand, and China's alone rose 11% last year, consistent with its use of natural gas as a stepping stone to meet its carbon neutrality goal relative to electric generation, which is 0% in 2060. So we have also a great record in reducing methane leaks from our gas pipeline system. For our dual fuel utilities that provide retail gas service, we're pivoting to available renewable natural gas and hydrogen as it becomes available and cost effective. And along the way, we need to recognize and mitigate transition impacts from this shift in generation type and investment, particularly relative to coal communities as coal generation units and mines are decommissioned. For us, that's largely in Wyoming and Utah, where we have a special responsibility to make investments to bolster jobs and tax base and to spur clean manufacturing there. So that's that's a lot on the policy agenda just in our piece of the energy environment. What's the outlook in Congress? What are the policy vehicles to try and get all of that done? For 2021, I've described it as having two very large policy planes just kind of circling to land. And the first, the COVID relief bill, seems to have just touched down with the passage by both the House and the Senate through what admittedly was a highly partisan process. The differences between those two bills need to be worked out this week. And while we could argue about the macroeconomic impacts of a $1.9 trillion price tag, the reality from a utility standpoint is that the relief package commits large sums to low-income energy bill-paying assistance for customers in trouble, which will bolster Oregon heat and other action items. And it has significant rental assistance that again can be used to help customers pay utility bills. So those are really good things for I've lost my lights. Struggling customers, but also for all customers, as bad debt expense can get picked up by other customers depending on utility rate design. I'm going to take a brief pause and solve this problem. 2 seconds. Well, sorry for the short commercial break. It's a funny thing in the era of COVID, right? We don't have enough people wandering around in our office to keep the energy efficiency facilities on. So it's a weird function of us trying to be responsible. So I was talking about elements of the COVID bill, and the next plane circling to land is an infrastructure package. It's called the Build Back Better program by the administration, and it will be debated across the summer and likely into the fall. I would tell you from an Oregon perspective, Peter DeFazio will be at the heart of those deliberations as the House Transportation Committee Chair, as will Ron Wrighton as the Senate Finance Committee Chair. So Oregon will be well represented By the way, it's really nice to see Jeff Merkley named the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee Chair, which bodes well for investments in wildfire resilience. But back on the infrastructure bill, yeah, you've seen this in the press. Individual committees of jurisdiction are now just tipping out their initial proposals. So for instance, the House Energy Commerce Committee just released its Clean Act last week, featuring an economy-wide national clean energy standard. The House Tax Writing Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee earlier released its Green Act with a variety of clean energy tax incentive proposals. So those are just opening offers in what will be a process of strong interest to those like us in the energy field, as well as by our customers. I'm happy to get into further detail during the Q&A, but consistent with my earlier comments, we're particularly interested in federal support for new high voltage transmission and energy storage, and funding for alternative fuel corridors. We're working with a coalition of strong partners, not the least of which are our friends at Portland General Electric. And so, the need for all of that has been underlined by recent events in Texas, where the lack of system resiliency created a set of events that, those are going to be the subject of focus for quite some time, including a lot of action in DC and a lot of bankruptcies in Texas. And as a company, we have significant assets across the board in Texas, gas pipelines, significant renewable facilities, and we own high voltage transmission there. So happy to provide you more detail if you're interested on how that all played out from our perspective. And then one other note of interest to all of us, and something we've been watching for Berkshire Hathaway proper, and we're keeping a close eye on for the potential for consideration of broad corporate tax reform. So things get a little bit murky there, but we've observed a few signposts along the way. Those include Treasury Secretary Yellen stating in her confirmation hearing that broad tax reform would wait until the economy improves. So, when we heard that, that would seem to suggest that we're not looking at tax reform in 2021. And, as is obvious, 2022 is a midterm election year. So, we would bet against broad tax reform initiatives then as well. So the question is, can we count on living with the current code in the near to midterm? And to me, I would tell you not necessarily. The rules under which, those first two circling planes, COVID relief and infrastructure legislation, are being considered are called budget reconciliation rules, which require any fiscal impact outside of a 10-year window require corresponding budget offsets. Those are known as pay-fors in DC parlance. So for any change in the tax code that is permanent, it requires a budgetary offset. So we're betting that we'll see piecemeal changes proposed as we get into deliberations around an infrastructure package. And as an early indicator, we saw a change to one corporate tax provision involving, this is going to sound incredibly arcane, but the allocation of international interest expense for corporations included in the COVID relief package to offset making the child tax credit permanent. So, a good example of the theory and the fact that the current majorities are willing to look at this in a piecemeal way. So what is in play? What could be targeted? What's important to all of us? I think first and foremost on the overall corporate tax rate, which you'll recall in the 2017 Tax and Jobs Act went from 35 down to 21%. We're hearing interest in increasing that from 21 back to 25%, though notably below the 28% President Biden campaigned on. We're also advised that on the personal tax side, we should keep an eye out for estate tax proposals around basis and rate and exclusion caps. Helpfully, we're hearing that the idea of a corporate minimum based on unrealized book gains let me say that again, unrealized book gains, so the value of your holdings without having sold them and realized actual revenue. Putting a 15% corporate minimum tax. We're hearing that was great politics on the campaign trail, but largely unworkable as a legislative proposal. So we'll see. I offer all of that as insight without foreknowledge of how accurate it'll be or how all of this will play out. But rest assured, on behalf of Berkshire Hathaway Energy and Berkshire Hathaway proper, we're dedicating significant assets to try and figure that out and track it. So that's a lot, maybe more than you bargained for. Perhaps Tom and Kathy, I'll stop there so that we have more time for Q&A. But again, I just wanted to thank you all. Thanks to Tom, the Chamber, Saafeld Griggs. My congratulations to Bonnie for what is really a wonderful community award. And my thanks to Jerry, our friend Jerry, for playing a significantly positive role in my life and being part of our extended family. So let me stop there and see whether you have any questions for me.
Yes, we do actually.
Great. I see some on the chat already.
Yeah. Let's start with, what concerns do you have regarding the vulnerability of the U.S. power grid to potential internet failure, computer virus, or natural or human attacks and excessive interdependence?
Yeah. We have taken significant measures in order to upgrade our systems such that we have what we call a safe and secure system. Our national security director for Berkshire Hathaway Energy actually sits, he's a Pacific Northwesterner too, Jeff Baumgarten. He sits in the office next to me, and we are extraordinarily vigilant on all of the systems, things that you would expect, but we recognize that the largest vulnerability to our system, recognizing we're trying to keep our corporate systems and our operating systems separately for obvious reasons, but our largest vulnerability is us. So we have at our company, we have phishing tests happening twice a week. The biggest potential impact is that somebody clicks on something they shouldn't, right, and introduces something to our system that has the potential to cede some level of control or make vulnerable our system information or our customer information. So, that is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. So a lot of what we focus on is recovery while we are trying to harden our systems on the front end. But the reality is a lot of us certainly will have things in our systems right now that we're not aware of. So being able to recover very, very quickly. We also think we're spending a lot of time on physical security. And, we have had some instances. There's a now infamous event at a substation in Silicon Valley where somebody who knew what they were doing shot out transformers so they would overheat. And we live in the West, and the term plinging is a thing, but this is somebody who went in and cut the communications cables in so that those facilities, the control room was blind to them with the expectation that they would overheat. And that is a scary thing. They missed one. So the control unit saw the temperature rise, shut down the transformers, preserved the equipment. But that was a wake-up call to our industry. So we spend a lot of time worrying about that for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Pat. Could you please say a little bit more about the future of nuclear power, hydrogen-powered energy?
Yeah, no, it's I mentioned a couple of those opportunities. It's a really cool thing, I think, for us as Oregonians, that the NuScale company, which is now owned by the Fluor Corporation in Texas, started out of research happening at Oregon State University. And I was NewScale was run by one of my predecessors, a former president of Pacific Power, the professor there, Dr. Reyes. I've had the opportunity to visit with, and we continue to be an advisor on projects, their project, and drive to put in a demonstration project at the Idaho National Lab. And so we're looking forward to that. And the idea of taking, as an alternative to 1,000 megawatt power plant, you have 13 40 to 60 megawatt units, and you put them in parallel. And so instead of having this, there's a phrase in our industry called having everything on one shaft, right? So rather than having 1,000 megawatts either on or off, you can rotate for fuel outages and have some flexibility, and it's an inherently safe design. So the question is, of course, cost. So we're looking forward to the demonstration. They have to prove their design with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and they're on that path. We also have spent a lot of time. Some of you saw the 60 Minutes special with Bill Gates, and may have seen other press around his book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. We have at home, I have an advanced copy of that, and it has on the inside page, it has his media plan, right? So it's been fun to watch all that get ticked off. But the book is really great. You should read it. And he talks about some of the things that I've talked about, the fact that you likely can't afford enough from a financial or a space standpoint, enough batteries to make the system resilient. You need something else. And he has invested in a company called Terrapower, and it is a different design. It has it's a fast reactor. It has sodium elements to actually provide some on-site storage capabilities. And we actually, our company and I participated in that, lobbied the congressional appropriations process to provide the Department of Energy with grant funding that now Terrapower has qualified for to build a test reactor. And we'd love to see that go forward, because we, said very simply, we need to have something to keep the lights on when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. And batteries are certainly an answer, not only new technology, but pumped hydro storage projects. But we're going to need something else to get to the ultimate goal. And it's hard to imagine you can get there without nuclear. It is a cost issue. So that's why we're hoping they make progress.
Right. Thanks, Pat. This one isn't on the list there in the chat. Pat, you've partnered personally with Mr. Warren Buffett. Give us a candid glimpse into those interactions, possibly a story that our guests might enjoy hearing.
Yeah, the idea of partnering is maybe there's a imbalance. No, it's been, what a thrill to be able to work for Berkshire and for Mr. Buffett, and to have been able to be with him, at regular intervals along the way. I was recruited in. I had been running a cooperative generation and transmission company, which was a wonderful business out of Portland, and got recruited into Pacific Corp when Berkshire purchased it in 2006. And the guy that recruited me, Greg Abel. So go Google the name Greg Abel, A-B-E-L. It's an interesting sidelight for hockey fans. He's Sid Abel's nephew. But he grew up in Calgary. There we go, Tom. He was the guy that recruited me in, and he was my direct boss for 12 years, and he's now the vice chairman of Berkshire proper, running all of the non-insurance side for Mr. Buffett. So the idea that you're just a couple of levels away from Warren Buffett in an org chart is kind of daunting. And I've had one major opportunity to really present a business case to him, and it was a multi-billion-dollar transmission set of investments. And I didn't fly to Omaha. We met at a a coal plant in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And instead of, dark suits in a dark paneled room, Greg and I actually were putting plastic, like Costco picnic tables together for the board meeting. And Mr. Buffett was there in kind of a rumpled golf shirt with a Berkshire logo on it. And, that was not a fun meeting to look forward to, but it's a great meeting to have looked back on because he approved the investments and a bunch of those are in service serving customers now. And my recollection is that the questions that I got asked as the sponsor of the project were really, there were some specific questions and you had to know the answers to, but it was really common sense. And he had figured out that he supported the investment before I ever walked in the room. He was just looking to see whether we had confidence in it, I think. And I would say my other really notable experience, we do an annual financial conference in New York, and Mr. Buffett has come every other year, and there was this year during the financial crisis, the Great Recession, and it's got to be 09 or 010, and he comes in and he does a Q&A, and there are about 30 of us standing around, and this is because we're not publicly traded, Berkshire is, but it's bondholder representatives and rating agency reps, and excuse me, I seem to have lost you. Hang on for 1 second. Anyway, they're all there we go. They're all asking questions about collateralized debt instruments, and really significant financial instruments that were at the heart of the housing market blowing up. And what I watched was this transition from kind of the genial grandfatherly guy who tells these, his jokes are amazing, to this unbelievably focused financial mind. And it was very, very personal. I read these prospectuses with 1,000 mortgages packaged together. If I couldn't understand the instrument, I knew nobody else could understand the instrument, and therein lies the risk. And as a result, it wasn't, at Berkshire we made the following moves in investment, was I made the following moves in investment. And when you're in our system, you kind of start to understand what that means, which is I work for a $127 billion holding company with 23,000 employees. And at the holding company level, there are, I don't know if we've cracked 30 people yet. And at Berkshire proper, which is a $500 billion company, there are, I think, 24 maybe. So it's all very personal, which, if you get up in the day, that there's, huge pressure and responsibility to be accountable. On the other hand, boy, you can get an answer, and it's really great. He's built something really really special, and the ethic around it, and the ability to be kind of you get a little bit of that Berkshire Mr. Buffett halo. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
Completely unexpected for a kid that grew up in Beaverton.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm going to get, here's an Oregon question. In Oregon, natural gas is on the menu, and our local manufacturers are very nervous when speaking about the potential removal of this affordable energy source. How do you perceive natural gas continuing to be viable despite the environmental groups wishing to remove natural gas from the grid? Sure.
So I'm going to be very forthright on this because I suspect my son, the representative of Northwest Hampshire, is on the line. So Connor, what I would tell you is what you know, which is that we do also have gas distribution companies, and we are confronted with this issue. Those companies providing retail gas service are in northern Nevada and in Iowa and other places. And so, we're watching this trend of local municipalities to enact gas bans very carefully also. And, you watch Oakland and other places move that direction. And it is a concern because it's a great fuel and it's a low cost fuel. And we are obligated to make a transition to lower emitting. Our customers want that, our stakeholders want that, but we're also obligated to do that in a way that is cost effective for customers. And so, along with that, we are doing what Northwest Natural is doing, which is we're looking at ever more sources of renewable natural gas. When I think about that, I think of my co-op experience. We had a generating plant at, so we'll get really local, right? Well, Coffin Butte, just north of Corvallis, right? There's a landfill there. And on that landfill is a gas pipeline system that pipes off landfill gas. And there are generating units which belong to PNGC Power, my former company. And, it's not rocket science, right? There are converted diesel CAT engines that are generating electricity there. But if you think about the emissions impact of that, while generating that gas has some emissions, but you compare that with flaring off methane from the landfill, and it's unbelievable. So even on the electric side, we can make use of what we would call renewable natural gas. So we need to do that. There are significant policy conversations going on about use of the gas infrastructure with hydrogen and the ability to inject different forms of hydrogen, including hydrogen that is generated through electrolysis using renewable electric generation sources. So, there are opportunities. We need to lean into those, but not throw the baby out with the bath water would be my impression.
All right, I think one more question. Pat, do you believe new renewable investments will be driven by utility-owned projects or private business with supply contracts?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Love it. There's somebody who's asking that who really knows the kind of the regulatory structures of our industry. I think it'll be both. We are working with individual large customers to help them meet their corporate sustainability goals as utilities, and as we have independent renewable operations as well. Good examples would be the Facebook data centers in Prineville. Some later date, I'll tell you the opening, the story about showing up to the opening of the first unit with Mark Zuckerberg there, but that's a whole different thing. But we've done a deal with Facebook that has them cover the costs of new solar facilities, and that those power purchase agreements facilitates new renewables in a great and sustainable way. And so we are, as our utility entities are working with customers through rate constructs and new contracts in order to facilitate all that. But maybe the even better work is as we look at our overall portfolio. So we are phasing down and out of a lot of thermal generation really consistently, and so we are acquiring significant new volumes of renewables. PacifiCorp is a good example. They are embarking on a new $3.5 billion plan to build new wind projects, repower existing wind projects with higher capacity, build new transmission in order to facilitate those, invest in new storage resources and some solar. And doing all of that while, as I mentioned, that kind of magic equation, shortening up the depreciable lives of existing thermal generation, and doing it in a way that keeps customer rates stable. But there's a huge connection to being able to do that in the policy world back here. There are broad benefits to doing a lot of that, building a more resilient system, building a lower emitting system. And so taxpayers, in addition to ratepayers, have contributed to that through beneficial tax policy. And we're working to continue that. Senator Wrighton, actually, who's chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, has a proposal to shift that regime so that tax credits accrue to deploying low emissions generation and phasing out as overall emission levels get lower. So we're working on proposals like that. So that's the 10-minute answer to a 2-minute question. Sorry.
Oh, well, thank you, Pat. Oh my gosh, that was really great information. Your comments are very valuable, especially your advocacy that you're there in Washington, D.C. doing, promoting strong business cases when our legislature is divided right now and how tough that is. We really appreciate you providing us with some really great comments. Just the key energy strategies that are going on right now for the future, infrastructure impacts. And I always like to hear about the corporate tax reform too. Being a CPA, that's very interesting to me. It keeps me in business.
Yeah, the reality is Berkshire Hathaway does not have a Washington office, nor do they engage in lobbying. But if the guy that is your longtime boss is the vice chairman of Berkshire, he's calling his team, and so you'd be surprised the lengths to which we're going to try and make sure we manage through that in a way that's acceptable, just given the impact to the Berkshire business as a whole.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being our keynote speaker today. That was really great information. And I also
delighted.
Yeah. I want to thank Scott Weigel from Donathan Sturdivant Wealth Advisors. Thank you for joining us today. And congratulations, Bonnie. Woohoo! Thank you. You're our newest Spirit of Salem Award recipient, and well-deserved. Thank you. And most of all, I'd like to really thank our sponsors, Saafeld Griggs PC, and for sharing their partner, Randy Sutton, with us today. Thank you so much. But most of all, thank you to all of you who are attending today. Thank you for taking the time to be with us and really share some valuable information. Remember to shop local and eat out and support our local businesses. Please do that. And don't forget, next month, we will have our April 12th forum, which will feature the Superintendent of Oregon State Police, Terry Davey. So she'll be there with us, 11:45, Monday, April 12th. So looking forward to seeing all of you then. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great week.